Mr. Speaker, we're honored to spend time with you, and thank you for the time. I want to start by talking a little bit about Mike Johnson, the congressman, versus getting into policy, which we will do. As you became the Speaker of the House, I wonder what burden it gave you to have on your shoulders the fact that you are two heartbeats away from the presidency. Does that weigh on you in your daily life?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. I've looked forward to speaking with you. It's a good question. I've had several people ask me that. I really don't feel the burden of that. I really don't. It's a promise of Scripture that when you do something that God's called you to do, that the burden is light and the yoke is not heavy. And I have to tell you that I really feel that. This is not a job that I ever aspired to. I was content to be just at a lower rung of House leadership and be a lieutenant to try to advance our conservative principles and save the country. But this unique set of circumstances occurred. We all kind of walked through a valley together, the House Republicans, the conference, and then thus the country. And when it became apparent that none of the other more senior members would be able to be elected Speaker, then I felt it was time to step forward. My colleagues nominated me, and I was really honored to have the title, but it's not one that I ever really aspired to. And so the real challenge right now is that there's so many things for us to do. The time is the hour is late. The crisis is great. So it has not left me with a lot of time over the last 7 weeks, Tom, frankly, to sit around and think about the position. It's more about the task ahead of us and what we've got to get accomplished.
One of the very first things you did as Speaker was to push through $14.5 billion in aid for Israel. And everybody was very impressed with that. And then, of course, it stalled in the Senate. Why was that your priority? And why do you think anybody would be hesitant to move forward with a standalone bill for Israel?
Those are great questions as well. Within an hour, actually, of my having been handed the gavel after being elected Speaker, taking the oath, we passed a resolution to express the House's support, the Congress's support for Israel, our great ally, our dear friend. And then within a couple of days, we passed that aid package. And that amount, $14.5 billion, was exactly what was requested. I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I spoke with my counterpart there in the Knesset, the Speaker of the Knesset. I spoke with the Defense Minister. And as I talked to these Israeli officials, they communicated what we know to be the urgent need. So we passed that bill out of the House, Tom, with a bipartisan vote. And we sent it over there to Chuck Schumer in the Senate. And it has been sitting on his desk collecting dust for 7 weeks now. Now, he and others give lip service to this idea that they support Israel, but if they really do, they ought to pass that package and get it over there. The reluctance they claim, is because what a concept, Tom. We paid for it. Instead of borrowing money from another country to send to Israel, our friend, I thought, there's $67 billion sitting in the fund to hire 87,000 new IRS agents to go and audit middle class and Americans and small businesses. In the hierarchy of need right now and the urgency of the hour, I felt like it was more important to take 14 billion of that and put it to aid and assist Israel. And I guess Chuck Schumer doesn't agree with those priority choices, but we really need to get this done.
Well, we all need to pray that does get through and does get through quickly, because the time has never been more urgent for Israel. And in that vein, Mr. Speaker, Israelis and really the world, certainly many Americans, were stunned yesterday to learn that in a meeting, I guess it leaked out, it wasn't supposed to be public, the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, meeting with Israeli authorities and IDF force leaders, asked them to lower the intensity of the fighting against Hamas. And that comes on the heels of President Biden making a comment that even though he is not asking Israel to stop the fighting, that he wants them to be more careful because civilians are being killed. How rooted in unreality is this administration when it comes to actually prosecuting something like a war?
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. They are not rooted in reality. We need to stand with Israel, allow them to develop their strategy and stop trying to micromanage this. And instead of inserting their opinions from this White House, who have done nothing but project weakness on the world stage and have I believe, created the environment, the circumstances for all of this to happen, all this aggression by our adversaries around the world, and potentially even this strike, this attack, this war against Israel. They need to support Israel by sending the aid package that's been requested, and stop trying to dictate strategy to them. They have not shown that they have any acumen in that area, of course. The biggest foreign policy blunder probably of our lifetimes was the withdrawal of Afghanistan and all of the other debacles that they've created on the world stage.
Yes.
Israel has to prevail. We do not need a ceasefire. We need to take out Hamas quite clearly. And for the White House to say anything other than that, as you said, shows that they're detached from reality.
I'm not trying to get you into more trouble in Washington than you would be in the normal course of being a speaker, but doesn't that kind of mixed messaging just embolden Hamas as opposed to helping Israel in any way?
Well, I think logically it probably does. It shows a lack of resolve by the U.S. And of course, I mean, I've been to Israel a number of times, and I'm sure you have as well. And
Yes.
when I speak to the leaders there, they've made it very clear from the prime minister on down that the reason Israel has been able to maintain peace for this many years and until this recent event, relative peace since they became a nation, is because the adversaries of Israel know that the U.S. stands with our friend. And if there's ever a time when they perceive that that is not true, then it gets to be a very desperate thing for Israel. This attack is, I think Netanyahu said it the best. He said, this is truly a battle between good versus evil, light versus darkness, civilization versus barbarism. And we have to ensure that the good and the light prevails.
Well, and I keep going back to David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, when he warned people. It's so amazing when you spend a little time with history. He warned Israel as it was just being born. We have to essentially guide our own ship as far as foreign policy or military actions go, and not be beholden to anybody, the United States or anyone, because their support can be fleeting. And that's what's happened here. As soon as Hamas started parading out bodies of people that had been killed, and it is very unfortunate, obviously, for women, children, anyone to be killed in a war, but when they're being used as human shields, that's inevitable. Ben-Gurion's position was obviously very smart, and here we are with their greatest ally, the United States, already trying to backtrack and guide what they're doing. It's just kind of crazy. You're an evangelical Christian. You mentioned scripture at the top of our time together. And as you know, evangelicals have a very special bond with Israel. Tell us why you personally feel so strong about Israel.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, not only do we have this shared Judeo-Christian tradition, there are a lot of things that bond the United States and Israel. Aside from the foreign policy importance of us maintaining the strongest democracy in the Middle East, and just for very pragmatic reasons, supporting our friend there, ensuring that they are stable and safe and strong. We also have this it's a matter of faith for many millions of Americans. We are admonished in Scripture to pray for the peace of Israel and of Jerusalem, and to stand with Israel, our friend. I mean, it is that is the center of the world. Jerusalem is the center of the world, not New York City, right? While we are proud Americans, and I believe we have the strongest, most powerful, most benevolent, most successful nation in the history of the world, Israel also has a very special place that predated us. And I think for many of, obviously, Jewish Americans and Christians in our country, we feel that as a matter of faith commitment as well as a matter of public policy.
You also have taken a very strong position on the battle against this very disturbing rise of anti-Semitism, particularly on college campuses around America. Last week, you had in the House a number of college presidents, one of whom is no longer employed as a president, at least, from the University of Pennsylvania, trying to explain why they cannot condemn people calling in demonstrations on their campuses for the genocide of Jews. And it always falls in this, well, it's a context issue, and well, it's a free speech issue. And one of the presidents, I believe President McGill, who's gone now as president, even said, well, that kind of speech, if it turns into action, would constitute harassment. In other words, if we let someone actually commit genocide, that would violate the policy of the school. I mean, what on earth has gotten into American education, and what can you as a Congress do? What can you do in your leadership role to help tamp that down?
Right. We've been seeing the rise of this rank hypocrisy on university campuses and these absurd speech codes and all these other things. The hypocrisy is on vivid display. I mean, the testimony in that committee was appalling, and the video of that has been seen, Tom, right now. I think it's almost at 1.5 billion views on YouTube in a week because it went around the world, because it is just astonishing to believe that the leaders of these universities could not clearly, under oath in a congressional testimony, say, yes, of course, it violates our values and our code of conduct for someone to advocate for the genocide of their classmates. I mean, that's what's happening on these campuses. So the backlash has been appropriate. We passed a resolution on the House floor just a couple of days ago this week to call that out, to condemn anti-Semitism on the college campuses and the outrageous testimony of these college presidents. We've got to have some focus and clarity on this. That we have Jewish students who came to Congress to testify that they are fearful to go to class. They are fearful to have their identity be known because they're afraid they'll be physically attacked. It is at that level on these campuses, and that's because I think many of these professors and these faculty lounges, I think they're on the side of the anti-Semites, and they're kind of perpetuating that on campus and giving it cover, and it is outrageous. We even have, as you know, a couple of members of Congress who have given cover for that kind of thing, and we have to expose it and condemn it in the clearest terms.
Well, along that line, and I know our time is limited, so I want to kind of wrap this up, but I'm very grateful for your time and for your leadership. Last week, or about 10 days ago, the last four non-Trump candidates for president in your party had a debate, and every one of them, to a person, voiced strong support for Israel. And yet, as you mentioned, whether it's the Squad or other people in the Democratic Party in the House, there seems to be a reluctance on the part of some members of the other party not to have full-throated support of Israel, and worse, to try and seek a moral equivalence between what happened on October 7th and people who unfortunately are dying in the war. Why do you suppose so many people, you deal with Hakeem Jeffries and other leaders of the other party, why do they have a reluctance to just stand with Israel?
Well, Hakeem has been pretty straightforward in his support. In fact, we had a menorah candlelighting service just a few days ago. I mean, Chuck Schumer has said the right things. We all appeared at that big rally, the March for Israel, several weeks back, and
Yes.
300,000 people. We went on the stage and said the U.S. stands united. We joined hands on the stage to do that. But they do have a growing problem in the Democratic Party. It's a moral problem and also a political problem, because they have this uprising of these sympathizers for Hamas apparently, and they're not really sure how to resolve that. It's a serious. I think it puts on glaring display again the hypocrisy of some of these elected officials and these university presidents and people who are in authority who have a lot of influence, and it's a real problem. We have to stand unequivocally for the good and for Israel. And it is a battle of good versus evil. And if we show any equivocation in that at all, then it really upsets the world order. I mean, the entire world is looking to see how strong the U.S. Will stand with Israel and how resolved we will be. And that's a really important thing for us to remember in all of this.
Well, you have voiced it very well, and many of us have prayed for a speaker like a Mike Johnson to be in the position you're in. As I say, 2 heartbeats away from the presidency. Nobody likes to think about that, but to have you in that important position and leading the charge for common sense and decency is something that I know, particularly at this season when we honor, the birth of Jesus, we think of the greatness of this country. Having someone like you at the helm in the House is a blessing to all of us. And we appreciate your time, and we just all are praying for you.
Well, Tom, thanks. It's been my honor to be with you, and I hope we can do it again in the future. This first 7 weeks in this position has been such a whirlwind, but the dust is beginning to settle a little bit. I think we'll have smoother sailing ahead and great days ahead. Look, I'm very bullish on the future, not only the survival and the future of Israel, of course, but also I'm very bullish about the future of America. We're going through a valley right now as a nation, but we're going to get through this. And I think that next election cycle is going to be very important for the future of our republic. And I know you and I agree on that. So thanks for all you do. Thanks to the Salem Network and everyone. God bless you and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merry Christmas to you.